Hello folks, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to talk about a camera that Canon is coming out with that I really hope and hoped that Lumix will come out with a camera like that and similar to that. And I'm quite excited that Canon it's actually decided to release such a camera. And the camera I'm talking about is the Canon PowerShot V1, which is not technically out yet in the world, or better, it is out only in Japan, and there have been a couple of creators here in US, like Jared Pauling, who has actually had a preview on it, not in hand preview, just a preview in the sense that he had a meeting with Canon, and they basically told him what basically the camera is about, and then he talked about it. And there have been a couple of, I think, from UK to YouTubers or so on. If you just Google Canon PowerShot V1, all these YouTubers will come out. But in Japan, there have been YouTubers who actually have put a review of this camera out, and one of them is like Yuzuka Okawa, and then Canon Market Japan put it out there, and then petapixels.com even has it on their website. So it's out there, we all know about it, but of course there hasn't been a lot of rumors because it hasn't been released in this part of the world yet. That's why there hasn't been this kind of boom of people talking about it. But why this camera excites me so much? Let's go in the features so you will understand why this camera excites me. It has been I think couple of years that I've been trying to find like a portable small camera. I was really, and I'm really close to actually push on the Fuji XM5, but something still is telling me to just wait because there might be something a little bit better. And I don't know why, but I have some sense that this camera might be. From the reviews, I really love how this camera looks like. But let's go into the features so you will understand better why I'm so excited about this camera. So basically, this is Sony ZV competitor of lineup of cameras. So Sony has the ZV-1, not the ZV-E1, but the ZV-1. So the one with the fixed camera. They have the 2, and this is basically a version of that camera from Sony, but with a fun build inside, with a little bit even of like an extra boost of things. So remember, this camera has a fun build inside. We will talk about later why. But basically, it has even a bigger sensor. It has a 1.4-inch sensor, which is basically a better sensor even over a camera like this one, which this one is the DJI Pocket 3, and it has a 1-inch sensor. This one is a 1.4-inch sensor, so it's a bigger sensor, which it means better light, right? And then the lens is one that it excites me so much, and it's so good that they went with the lens like this. So it is a 8.8 to 25.6 millimeter focal length, but since this one is a 1.4-inch sensor, you have to basically times that times 1.881. So that's where the equivalent is going to basically be 16 to 50 millimeter, and it's going to be basically a 2.8 to 4.5. And of course you have to kind of in full frame terms, and then you will need to times that too. So basically the f-stop is going to be 2.8 times 1.81. It's going to basically look more as a 5.1 in terms of how do you say, in sense of like bokeh and in sense of like separation from the background. So it's not going to be looking like a 2.8. The 2.8 is going to be mostly for the light. So it's going to be nice because you're going to have that 2.8 for light, but then when it's going to look more about compression and stuff like that, it's going to look more like a 5.1. I hope you guys understood what I'm trying to explain. So it's going to be in compression size, or to bokeh side, it's going to be mostly basically a 5.1 to basically 8.1 in sense of like depth of field. I couldn't find the term. So in sense of depth of field, it's going to look more like a 5.1 to an 8.1. But in sense of lighting, then that is going to be normal 2.8 to 4.5. And that is kind of a normal thing when you talk about APS-C or micro four third terms. It's just normal. So the number that you see there, like 1.7, 2.8, in micro four third terms and in full frame terms, they are different in the sense of depth of field. The light that enters into the sensor is still going to be the same. So 2.8 is the same. But because the sensor is a smaller sensor, the depth of field is going to feel different. The lighting is going to be the same. The depth of field is going to be different. So that is basically the difference. And if you want to know how the depth of field is going to feel different, how different it's going to be compared to full frame sensor, you just basically have to take the aperture number and multiply it for whatever the crop is, and you will know what the depth of field is going to look like in the sense of like micro four third times 2. In the sense of APS-C, depending where you are, is going to be between 1.5 to 1.7. You times it to depth of field or to the aperture, and then you will know how much depth of field you will have in difference to the full frame sensor. So if this is a topic you would like to learn more, we can talk about it. I can create a video, a tutorial, so you can understand better how this works. But this is literally like if you're a cinematographer and you want to calculate what the difference between full frame, micro four third, depth of field will be, that is basically how you know the difference. And it's amazing because this camera is going to have a really good, I have to say, close up. So basically in the terms of when you are on the 16, on the wider 16 side, you're gonna have 5 centimeters, so something like this basically. And then on the 50, you're gonna have 15 centimeters, so something more like this, right? So I'm gonna use my hand span, but don't think dirty mime stuff. This is gonna have basically a classic tilt and flip screen, so the one that most camera has nowadays, because this camera is gonna aim to vloggers and photographers and stuff like that. Is going to have basically a cold shoe. For what I've seen, it doesn't seem that it's going to have a hot shoe where you can with electronics, but if I'm mistaken, I'll probably just put it down below here somewhere and correct myself in that case. It's going to have a zoom rocket on the front because this is going to be a fixed lens. So the zoom rocket is going to help you to punch in from 50 to 16 or 16 to 50. And then it's going to have a tele light, so that's really, really cool. It's going to have a headphone and a mic jack, something that it seems like many companies have been forgetting about this, but this is going to have. And here is where I'm going to mention again that it's going to have a cooling fan inside that is going to allow this camera to record for 2 hours in 4K 60, which it means that in 4K 30 or 24 or 25, depending where you are in the world, it's going to give you more than that in such a small camera. Remember that. But of course there is a caveat, but we will talk about it a little bit later on the specs. But then the ports, we're gonna have USB-C and a micro HDMI. It's gonna have a record button and a shutter button, so separate buttons for record and for photography. This thing is one thing that I really love, that I hope every company from now forward will put it, is going to have a video and photo switch. Wow. I really hope they did it on the S5IIX, but whatever. So it's gonna have a video and photo switch, which is an amazing thing. It's gonna have the trusty Digit 10 processor or Digit X processor from Canon. It's gonna have the dual pixel AF2 from human and animal, with human and animal. And it's pretty cool because it seems that this is going to be the one from the Canon R6 Mark II, as the sources have said, or the reviewers have said, because let's remember they have already been Japanese reviewers who have reviewed this camera, so it's out there technically, not in this part of the world. Then it's going to have a single UHS 2 card, and then it's going to have a little bit of a downside here, the Canon LPE17 batteries, which I still have in my cupboard actually from the time of the Canon M6 Mark II. So I might finally get used to them again, because you can't really sell them. Nobody really wants them. And when you sell your cameras to companies and stuff, the batteries usually are not purchased. They are basically you donating to them, just because they don't have any way to measure how much life expectancy they still have. So companies don't really buy them. And this is basically the body, the hardware, and so on. So the video features are basically going to be 4K oversampled 5.7K, and it's going to do that in 25, 24, and 30 frames per second. And then it's going to basically have, as I said earlier, 4K 60, but the 4K 60 is going to have a 1.4 crop on it, which it will make this lens basically a 22.4 to 70, which is still pretty good range. Like 22.4, it's still pretty wide if you, whatever you want to do. This camera is still gonna have basically 10-bit in C-Log 3. That's where probably the fan will be a really good friend of yours because it's gonna spin, like, because the files from C-Log 3 sometimes are pretty hefty, from my own experience with the Canon R6 especially. So yeah, it's really good that it has a fan, but I live in Finland, so this camera is probably gonna be pretty happy in this weather. It's gonna have basically a 3-stop ND filter. For what I understood, it's not gonna be variable between like 1 and 3. It's just 3 stop. That's it. And then it's gonna basically have video simulations functions. So basically something more like the Fuji film simulation styles. I'm not sure if it's gonna be like more like the real-time light from Lumix, which is still kind of the best system out there. But it's gonna have some video simulation functions. Like Canon had, I think, the creative LUT thing on there since the M50, and it was pretty cool and creative. So I guess with this one they can even do more. In photography, it's not gonna have anything mind-blowing or anything special, but it's gonna have basically 30 frames per second raw. That's pretty much pretty much what it is. And I'm not sure if it's gonna have only electronic inside, or it's gonna have a mechanical shutter too. That it hasn't really been mentioned because most of the reviewers were focused on video specs and the whole thing. And as I said, in Japan, how they did the review was pretty different. But yeah, I wanted to give the credits to, of course, the people who actually put the voice out there, or the ones that I seen the videos of. And the first one is Gerard Poling, the second one is Yuzuka Ohawa, then Canon Marketing Japan, because they have put already a video out there, and then on petapixels.com they have talked about it on their channel, on their news channel. And I guess on the 26th they will have a video on it. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to receive this camera because I'm still unknown reviewer and talker and whatever. But yeah, this is pretty much it. And this camera excites me so much because I hope Lumix will create something like this, because it will be so cool to have Lumix colors, Lumix IBIS. This camera doesn't have an IBIS, by the way. It has electronic image stabilization, but for this price, it's probably going to cost between probably around the R100 kind of price line. So there is nothing to complain there. It's going to be pretty cheap, obviously relatively cheap compared to other cameras that Canon has in their lineup. And then Canon is going to come out with a new lens and apparently a V50, if I'm not mistaken, which is going to be another vlogging camera but interchangeable. So I guess it's going to be mostly like the PowerShot V1, but on an interchangeable mount. So you can have both choices. You can go with the fixed lens or you can go with the interchangeable mount. And I think it's going to be actually a APS-C, actually not 1.4 inch. That one is going to be an APS-C, but we gotta wait the 26th of March to see. But hey, comment down below what your thoughts are, and if you would like Lumix to actually create a camera like this, let's voice it, and who knows, maybe they will do it or maybe not. I don't know. And imagine if they do it with the Micro Four Third sensor, like basically an the S9 with a Micro Four Third sensor, and with the GH7 sensor in that camera, because that's basically the best sensor they have in this moment. And as they did with the S9, they can do with the GH7, right? They can just bring the GH7 sensor into an S9 body, maybe a little bit smaller. Voila, you have a beast portable camera. But hey, thank you for sticking here and listening to me blabbering as always. I'm gonna see you in the next one. Take good care of yourself.